The first thing
Fresh
people
noodles,
noticed
hot and
about
ready.
Marisol Rivera wasn't
Look
her
at that
beauty.
steam, perfect.
It was the smell.
Want to try?
Every
Sorry, sweetie, you
afternoon
look
at exactly
hungry.
3:17
For me,
p.m.,
wow.
when the school buses exhaled
Yes,
children
gone.
onto the sidewalks
Here you
of
go,
Westbrook
sweetie.
Avenue, the air shifted.
Thanks.
That
Butter
looks
hitting
good.
a hot
Want
griddle.
some? Yeah.
Cinnamon blooming in melted sugar. Garlic and thyme rising like a quiet promise. Marisol's food truck sat on the corner like it had roots in the pavement. Bright turquoise paint.
That's it.
Hand-lettered
Adrian, good,
menu.
Right?
A small
Yes,
chalkboard
so
sign
good.
that
Look at
read,
that smile.
"If you're
See?
hungry,
Just-
your
Oh my
family."
God, here comes the airplane.
She had opened that truck 3
So
years ago with
good.
nothing but her grandmother's
Save some
recipes,
for-
a
There you
maxed
go,
out
sweetie.
credit
Enjoying
card,
those
and a
noodles?
daughter who believed her mother
yes,
could do
so
anything.
yummy.
By
Good.
4
You
o'clock,
just-
there was
careful,
always a
it's hot.
line. Construction
Thanks.
workers in dusty
Adrian,
boots.
the time.
Nurses
Oh, no.
still in scrubs. Teenagers pooling crumpled dollar bills. Office employees pretending not to count calories. And almost every afternoon for the past 2 weeks.
There was him. The boy. He stood 10 feet away. Same spot.
Near the lamppost with peeling paint. Too well dressed for the neighborhood.
Crisp navy sweater.
Clean white sneakers that never seemed to scuff. Hair trimmed sharp along the edges like someone paid attention to details.
He never stepped into line. He never asked the price. He just watched.
The first day she noticed him, she assumed he was waiting for someone. The second day, she thought maybe he was shy. By the 5th day, she knew something wasn't right. Because hungry children don't stare at food like that unless something is missing. Marisol pretended not to notice at first. She moved with the rhythm she had mastered: flip, season, plate, smile. Her hands worked fast, but her eyes kept drifting back to that lamppost.
He didn't fidget. Didn't check a phone. Didn't look bored.
He watched the steam rise from her pots like it was a magic trick. On the 7th day, she made a decision. The line thinned around 4:10. The sun softened into gold. She wiped her hands on her apron and leaned halfway out the service window.
Hey, she called gently.
You planning to stare all day, or you coming to say hello? The boy startled like he'd been caught stealing. I'm fine, he said quickly.
His voice was soft. Polite. Trained. You sure? She asked.
Because that look you're giving my chicken says otherwise.
A flicker crossed his face. Not embarrassment. Hunger.
I don't have any money, he said. It wasn't defensive.
It was factual.
Marisol's chest tightened just a little. She reached for a small cardboard tray and started building something without asking again. Golden roasted chicken. Creamy mashed potatoes with brown gravy.
A biscuit brushed in honey butter.
She walked it around the side of the truck herself.
Here, she said.
It's too much food for me anyway. He shook his head immediately.
I can't. Why? He hesitated. Then quietly.
My dad says nothing in life is free.
There it was. Not entitlement. Not arrogance. A rule.
Marisol crouched so they were eye level. The city noise dimmed behind her. Well, she said softly, your dad sounds like a smart man.
The boy nodded once.
But he's wrong about one thing.
She held out the tray again. Kindness is. For a second, he just stared at her. Measuring. Deciding. Then slowly, he took it. And the first bite? It wasn't polite. It wasn't controlled. It was desperate. He ate like someone who had been hungry for something deeper than food. Shoulders loosening. Eyes closing. Small breath escaping between bites like relief. Marisol pretended not to watch. Pretended her throat hadn't tightened. When he finished, he wiped his mouth carefully with the napkin she'd given him. Too careful for a child his age. Thank you, he said. You're welcome. He glanced over his shoulder. Not casually. Nervously. Then he leaned closer, lowering his voice like they were sharing a secret. Don't tell him you gave it to me. Marisol's smile faded just slightly. Tell who?
But the boy was already stepping back. Already retreating toward the sidewalk. And for the first time, she noticed the black SUV parked across the street. Engine running. Windows tinted too dark to see inside. The boy didn't look back at her again. He walked straight toward it. The rear passenger door opened before he even reached the curb.
And just before he got in, he looked over his shoulder. Not at the truck. Not at the food. At her.
Like he was hoping she wouldn't disappear.
The door shut.
The SUV pulled away. And Marisol stood there, tray still warm in her hands, heart beating a little slower than normal. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about a hungry child. It was about whoever was watching from behind those tinted windows.
And why? Now tell me something.
If you saw that every single day,
A child too polished, too careful, too rehearsed.
would you mind your business? Or would you do exactly what she just did? Because tomorrow,
He comes back. And this time,
he's not alone. The next morning, Marisol woke up before the sun. Not because she wanted to.
because she had to. The apartment was small. 2 bedrooms.
One flickering kitchen light she kept meaning to fix. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence like white noise against unpaid bills stacked neatly on the counter. She moved quietly so she wouldn't wake Sophia. 7 years old. Curly hair that refused to be tamed. A laugh that made everything feel temporary, even hardship. Marisol tied her apron strings in the half-dark and checked her phone. 3 missed calls from an unknown number. She ignored them. There were more important things to worry about. Like the rent due in 9 days. Like the supplier who wanted payment up front now. Like the tire on the food truck that had started making a sound she didn't want to Google. But she never let Sophia see any of that. Because Marisol Rivera had rules. Rule number 1, we don't beg. Rule number 2, we don't borrow what we can't repay. Rule number 3, if we fall, we stand up quietly. She had left Sophia's father when promises became apologies and apologies became patterns. She'd chosen uncertainty over instability. And she never once regretted it. Even on the hardest days. Especially on the hardest days. By 2:45 p.m., the truck was parked. By 3:17, the air carried cinnamon again. And by 3:23,
He was there. Same lamppost. Same posture.
same careful distance. Marisol didn't smile this time. She simply prepared a smaller tray. When the line thinned, she didn't call out. She just walked it over. You're early, she said. I like watching, he replied. Watching what?
How you move, he said.
You don't get stressed when it's busy. She laughed softly.
Oh, I get stressed.
I just don't show it. He studied her like that mattered. She handed him the tray without ceremony this time. He hesitated only for a second before taking it.
Progress.
He sat on the edge of the curb, eating more slowly today. Less desperate. Still hungry. Do you always stand there? She asked.
He nodded. Why? He shrugged.
I'm not supposed to talk to people.
And yet,
He glanced up at her. You talk to me first.
a fair point. Day 3. He returned. Day 4. Day 5.
The routine built itself. She never asked for money. He never offered. He started helping her carry napkins back to the truck. He asked questions about the recipes. He learned Sophia's name. On the 6th day, Sophia came straight from school to the truck, backpack bouncing. That's him. She whispered loudly. Yes, Marisol murmured. Sophia marched over with fearless curiosity only children possess.
Hi. I'm Sophia.
My mom says I talk too much.
The boy blinked. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled.
It changed his entire face. I'm Adrian, he said. Sophia plopped down beside him like they'd known each other for years.
You look sad sometimes, she announced.
Marisol shot her a look.
Sophia.
It's okay, Adrian said quietly. He didn't deny it. Over the next week, fragments of him began to surface. His mother was gone.
He never said how.
He just said, she used to cook.
Past tense. Final.
He didn't like the food at home now. It's healthy, he clarified carefully. But it doesn't taste like anything. He spoke like someone choosing words under supervision. Strangely mature. Measured. He always checked his watch.
Not a toy watch. Not a colorful digital one.
A slim, expensive piece with a dark leather strap. Every afternoon at exactly 4:32, he'd stiffen slightly. And within seconds, the black SUV would pull up across the street. Same position. Same idle engine. Same tinted windows. Marisol never noticed. She was too busy packing leftovers.
Counting change.
Kissing Sophia's forehead. Adrian would wipe his hands carefully, stand and say, I have to go. See you tomorrow? She'd ask casually.
A pause. Then. Yes.
Like it wasn't fully his decision. One afternoon, rain threatened early. The crowd was thin. Adrian arrived damp at the edges, hair slightly out of place for the first time. You're late, she said gently. I had a meeting. She laughed. You're 10. He didn't laugh back. They ask me questions, he said instead. What kind of questions? He looked down at the tray she handed him.
About you. Something shifted. Not alarm. Not yet. Just awareness.
What about me?
He shrugged.
What you say. If you ever ask about my family. If you ask where I live. Marisol frowned slightly. And what do you tell them?
The truth.
And what's that? He met her eyes fully. That you just feed me.
No agenda.
No curiosity.
No expectation. Just feed him.
A warmth spread through her chest so quickly it almost hurt. Maternal instinct isn't loud.
It's quiet. Steady. Protective.
She reached out without thinking and brushed a raindrop off his sleeve. You know, she said softly, you don't have to report on me.
He looked confused. I'm not. But he checked his watch again. 4:31. Right on time.
The SUV rolled into view. Engine humming like clockwork.
He stood up. But this time.
He lingered. You're not like the others, he said suddenly. Marisol tilted her head. What others? Adrian's mouth opened slightly.
Then closed.
His eyes flicked toward the SUV. The rear door had already opened.
Waiting. He stepped back. Too fast.
See you tomorrow, he said, voice smaller now.
What others? She repeated softer.
But he was already turning. Already walking toward the dark vehicle across the street.
And for the first time, as the door shut behind him,
the SUV didn't drive away immediately.
It stayed there. Engine running. Watching.
Marisol wiped her hands slowly on her apron. A thin thread of unease slipped under her skin.
Others.
How many others? And what exactly? Was she being compared to? Tomorrow would answer that.
Or make things worse.
By the second week, it wasn't a coincidence anymore.
It was a routine. 3:23 p.m. Lamppost. Navy sweater. Quiet eyes.
But something had shifted. He didn't stand 10 feet away now. He stood 5. Close enough to smell the cinnamon without pretending he wasn't waiting. Marisol didn't call it attachment.
She called it habit.
And habits, she had learned, were safer than hope. Apron, Adrian said one afternoon, pointing.
She looked down.
A streak of flour ran across her hip. You're supposed to tell me that before customers see it, she teased. He reached for a napkin and handed it to her with a seriousness that felt older than 10. From that day forward, he started helping. Not in obvious ways.
Small ones.
Stacking empty trays. Refilling the napkin holder. Wiping down the side counter with exaggerated precision. You don't have to work for food, she reminded him once.
I'm not, he said calmly. I'm helping. There was a difference to him.
And she respected it. She began packing him extra without making a show of it. An extra biscuit tucked beneath foil. A small container of rice, because I made too much. A slice of cinnamon bread wrapped separately. He never said thank you loudly.
He said it like a contract. Soft. Certain. Intentional. And then, one afternoon, he laughed.
It wasn't big. It wasn't carefree. It slipped out when Sophia tried to flip a pancake and dropped it on the pavement instead. The sound surprised even him. Marisol froze for a second. Because it changed his entire energy. For just a moment, he looked like a child. Sophia grinned triumphantly. See?
You do know how.
Adrian looked confused.
How what? How to be normal. He didn't respond.
But later that day, when he mentioned home, Sophia noticed something Marisol hadn't fully allowed herself to name. You get quiet when you talk about your house, Sophia said bluntly, swinging her legs from the truck step. Adrian stared at the pavement. It's just big, he said carefully.
Big houses are cool, Sophia replied.
Not if no one talks in them. Marisol felt that sentence land in her chest.
No one talks in them.
She wanted to ask more. But something about Adrian's posture, straightened spine, folded hands, told her questions had consequences in his world.
So she didn't press.
She just handed him another biscuit. And watched him eat it slowly this time.
Comfortably.
The first time she truly noticed the SUV. It wasn't dramatic.
It was subtle.
A reflection in the truck's side mirror.
Dark shape. Still. Present. She squinted. There it was again. Same model.
Same positioning. Same idle engine.
This time, she didn't look away. And for the first time,
she saw movement inside.
A silhouette. Broad shoulders. Still posture. Watching. Not scanning the street. Not on a phone. Watching her. A thin chill crept up her spine.
She told herself it was nothing. Probably a protective father.
Probably cautious.
Probably wealthy. Adrian didn't look like a child from this neighborhood. His shoes alone could pay her electric bill. She tried to shrug it off. But that afternoon, when Adrian checked his watch, her eyes followed his.
4:32.
The SUV engine growled slightly louder.
On cue.
He stood immediately.
Too immediately.
I have to go. You always do, she said lightly.
He paused.
Like he wanted to say something else.
But didn't.
Then came the day he didn't show up.
3:23 passed. No lamppost shadow. 3:40. No navy sweater.
By 4 o'clock, her chest felt tighter than she wanted to admit.
It's fine, she told herself. He has a life. But when 4:15 hit, and there was still no sign, her mind did what mothers' minds do best. It imagined worst-case scenarios with terrifying speed. Accident. Illness. Punishment.
Sophia noticed before she spoke.
You keep looking for him.
I'm not, Marisol lied gently.
At 4:41. He appeared. Running. Breathing hard. Hair slightly disheveled.
For the first time, his composure cracked. You're late, she said, stepping around the counter without thinking.
He nodded. I know.
She handed him food automatically. His hands were colder than usual.
What happened? He shook his head once.
Then quietly. He asked me what you would do. The words were careful. Measured. But something in them trembled. Marisol crouched slightly.
Asked who?
He didn't answer that. What did he ask exactly? Adrian swallowed.
If you found out.
Found out what? His eyes flicked toward the street. Then back at her. He asked what you would do if you knew.
Knew what? She pressed.
But just as quickly.
He straightened. Changed expression.
Like a curtain dropping. It doesn't matter, he said.
He took a bite. Too calm now. Too composed. She felt two things at once. Confusion. And something sharper. Protectiveness.
Who was asking him these questions? Why was a child being used as an informant?
And more importantly,
what exactly didn't she know? The tension settled into the air like humidity before a storm.
And then, one evening, it broke.
The sun was lower than usual. Golden light stretching long across the pavement. Adrian stood beside her as she packed his tray. She handed it over. Their fingers brushed. And before she could say anything, the SUV door opened. Not the back. The front. A polished black shoe stepped onto asphalt. Then another. The door shut with quiet precision. And he emerged. Tall. Tailored charcoal suit. No tie. Silver watch catching the last light. He moved without hurry. Without hesitation. Every step deliberate. Adrian went still beside her. Not afraid. Not exactly. But alert. The man stopped 3 feet from the truck. Close enough for her to see his face clearly. Sharp jawline. Controlled expression. Eyes that missed nothing. He looked at Adrian first. Then at her. Not dismissively. Not warmly. Assessing. Marisol straightened instinctively. Apron dusted with flour. Hair tied back. Hands steady. The silence stretched. Traffic hummed behind them. The air felt charged. Finally, he spoke. Voice deep. Even. Unshaken. Thank you for feeding my son. Nothing more. No explanation. No smile. No apology. Just gratitude delivered like a statement in a boardroom. Marisol felt her heartbeat in her ears. Son. So that's who him was. The man's eyes held hers for a second longer than comfortable. Not aggressive. Not friendly. Just calculating. Adrian didn't look up at him. He stared straight ahead. Waiting. For what, she didn't know. And in that moment, Marisol understood something without being told. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't kindness unnoticed. It was something else. Something deliberate. The man gave a slight nod. Then turned. Walked back to the SUV. The door shut. Engine low. And within seconds, they were gone. Marisol stood frozen beside her truck. the tray still warm in her hands. Her daughter watching from inside. And a single question echoing louder than traffic.
How long had she been watched? Because tomorrow, this stops being simple and starts becoming intentional.
The next afternoon, the SUV didn't wait across the street. It parked directly in front of her truck.
No tinted distance. No shadows. A statement.
Marisol felt it before she saw it. That subtle shift in the air when power enters a space and expects to be acknowledged.
The door opened. He stepped out again.
Charcoal suit replaced with navy today.
Crisp white shirt. No tie.
No visible rush. Adrian followed, quieter than usual. Marisol wiped her hands slowly on her apron, buying herself a second to steady her pulse. He approached without a smile.
Not rude. Not warm. Measured.
Up close, he was even more controlled than she remembered. The kind of man who rarely blinked first. The kind who negotiated million-dollar deals without raising his voice. His gaze moved over her truck.
The handwritten chalkboard. The modest line forming. The worn tires.
He was studying her world. Not judging it.
Cataloging it. Good afternoon, he said.
His voice carried authority without volume. Afternoon, she replied evenly. Adrian stood between them for half a breath before instinctively stepping to her side instead of his father's.
It was small.
But it did not go unnoticed. The man's eyes flickered briefly.
Then returned to her.
I wanted to speak with you, he said.
About my son.
Adrian stiffened slightly. The father noticed that too. Always noticing. Marisol nodded toward the side of the truck. We can talk here. He reached into his inner jacket pocket and pulled out a slim envelope. No theatrics. He extended it toward her.
For your time.
And your generosity.
She didn't take it. Instead, she looked at it. Then at him.
How much is in there?
Enough, he said calmly.
That doesn't answer the question.
A pause. 5,000.
For a second, even the traffic noise seemed to quiet. $5,000. For biscuits and chicken.
For kindness. For what she thought was simple.
She felt the weight of her unpaid rent.
The supplier invoice.
The tire that needed replacing.
5,000. But she didn't reach for it. I don't charge children, she said quietly.
This isn't payment for food, he replied.
It feels like it.
His jaw tightened slightly. He wasn't used to refusal. Especially not from someone in a flour-stained apron.
It's compensation, he clarified. For what? For consistency. Her eyes sharpened.
That sounds like a contract. He studied her for a moment longer. Then slowly lowered the envelope.
Not offended.
Not angry.
Just noting.
He slipped it back into his jacket.
Another data point.
You don't take charity, he observed. It's not charity if I earned it, she replied. And have you? She met his gaze without flinching. I don't know yet. A flicker of something passed through his eyes.
Respect. Very subtle. Almost invisible. But there.
I've been watching, he said finally. The words landed evenly.
Not apologetic. Not defensive. Simply factual.
Marisol felt her pulse shift.
For how long? Long enough.
That's not specific. His eyes didn't waver. I prefer specifics. And I prefer caution.
There it was.
A chess match disguised as conversation. She crossed her arms lightly. You've been watching me feed your son.
Yes. Why? A beat.
Adrian shifted slightly, uncomfortable. His father's tone didn't change. Because he hasn't eaten properly in almost a year.
The air shifted.
Not dramatically.
But enough.
My wife passed away, he continued. She cooked every day. After she was gone, he stopped eating. The last sentence came out slower.
Less polished.
Marisol glanced at Adrian.
He was looking down. Not embarrassed. Just exposed.
He refused chefs, the father continued. Refused catering. Refused school lunches. He barely speaks at home. His voice remained controlled. But something underneath it cracked. Just slightly. And then he started eating here.
Marisol swallowed.
And instead of asking me directly, she said carefully, you watched.
Yes. Why?
His answer was immediate. Because intentions matter. She understood that more than she wanted to. I needed to see, he continued, whether you would ask who he was.
She hadn't.
Whether you would ask where he lived.
She hadn't.
Whether you would change once you knew.
She hadn't known. Until now.
She inhaled slowly. And what did you conclude? His eyes held hers steadily. That you didn't treat him like leverage.
The word felt heavy. Transactional.
Strategic.
Her stomach tightened.
You think people would use a child for leverage?
I know they would.
Silence settled between them. The city continued moving around them. But the space between them felt still.
Intentional.
Then he shifted tone slightly.
Not softer. But personal. He laughs here, he said.
It wasn't an accusation. It was an observation weighted with something deeper. He doesn't laugh at home. That did something to her. Because she had seen that laugh.
The way it startled him.
The way it looked like sunlight breaking through fog.
He's a child, she said quietly.
Children laugh when they feel safe.
A pause.
His expression flickered again.
Safe.
I would like to make you an offer, he said.
Here it comes.
Come cook for him privately, he continued.
At our home.
A few afternoons a week. Whatever compensation you deem appropriate. Her instinct was immediate.
No. Not out loud.
But internally. This man didn't just watch.
He tested. He calculated. He controlled.
She didn't trust control. Not after Sophia's father.
And if I say no? She asked.
Then I will respect that. His tone didn't change. But his jaw tightened slightly again. He wasn't used to variables he couldn't predict.
You don't trust me, he stated. Should I? A long silence. Then, unexpectedly. No, he said honestly.
That answer surprised her. And that surprised him. There it was again. That subtle shift. Attraction mixed with distrust. Power meeting resistance. He looked less like a billionaire in that moment. And more like a father who didn't know how to fix something money couldn't solve. I don't know how to reach him, he admitted quietly. The confession slipped out before it could be filtered.
Marisol felt it.
The grief under the structure. The loss under the control. Adrian looked up at his father for the first time during the conversation. Something unspoken passed between them.
Not warmth. But longing.
Marisol exhaled slowly. I don't enter homes where I'm being evaluated, she said carefully.
His eyes sharpened.
You think this is an evaluation? I think everything about you is. That almost made him smile.
Almost. Then. Softly.
So quietly it barely carried over the traffic.
You passed. The words hung there. Ambiguous. Loaded.
She frowned slightly. Past what? He held her gaze for one long second. Then looked toward Adrian. Then back at her. But he didn't answer. Instead, he simply nodded once. Turned. And walked back toward the SUV. Leaving her with more questions than before. Because if this was a test, it wasn't over. It had just entered a new phase. The next conversation didn't happen at the truck. It happened 3 days later. At dusk. When the crowd had thinned. When Sophia had gone inside to finish homework. When the sky was caught between orange and blue. He didn't wait for permission this time. He stepped out of the SUV and walked directly toward her as she was closing up. 5 minutes, he said. Not a request. But not a command either. She hesitated. Then nodded toward the side of the truck again. 5. Adrian remained inside the vehicle. Watching through the glass. The father stood close enough now that she could see the faint exhaustion beneath his composure. Not physical fatigue. Emotional. He didn't waste time. I owe you clarity, he began. Yes, she replied evenly. You do. A pause. Then. I've been testing caregivers for months. There it was. Not sugar-coated. Not softened. Testing. Her jaw tightened. I don't hire blindly, he continued. After my wife died, people saw opportunity. Opportunity? She echoed. Nannies who leaked photos. Chefs who negotiated bonuses based on his appetite. Therapists who discussed our family at dinner parties. Each sentence delivered without emotion. But the implication was heavy. I stopped trusting recommendations, he said. I stopped trusting resumes. So you used your son instead, she said quietly. He didn't flinch. Yes. The honesty hit harder than denial would have. I allowed him to approach you. The words felt clinical. Deliberate. My security team monitored the distance. Audio was limited. But I wanted to observe unfiltered interaction. Her stomach dropped. You were listening? Not to every word. To patterns. Her voice sharpened. What patterns? He met her gaze directly. Whether you would call the police. She blinked. Whether you would ask for payment once you suspected financial disparity. Her chest tightened. Whether you would try to identify us. A breath. Whether your tone would change once you knew. Silence settled heavily between them. He continued. You never asked who he was. Because she didn't care. You never asked where he lived. Because that wasn't the point. You never treated him differently once I stepped out of that car. That last one lingered. She felt heat rise in her chest. Anger. Humiliation. Violation. You used your own child to test me, she said finally. Not loud. But sharp. He didn't look away. Yes. No defense. No apology. Just truth. Her hands curled at her sides. Do you have any idea how that feels? She asked. I have an idea, he replied. No, she cut in. You don't. Her voice trembled now, not from fear. From principle. You stood across the street and measured my kindness like it was a performance. His expression didn't change. But his eyes darkened slightly. I measured safety, he corrected. You measured control. A beat. He absorbed that. You think this was about you, he said. Wasn't it? He shook his head once. It was about him. She followed his gaze to the SUV. Adrian sat in the back seat, posture straight, hands folded in his lap. Waiting. Always waiting. My wife used to cook every night, the father said quietly. There it was again. That subtle crack beneath steel. He would sit at the counter. Talk about school. About nothing. She listened. His voice slowed. After she died, the kitchen became silent. The word lingered. Silent. He stopped eating within weeks. At first I thought it was grief. Then stubbornness. Then control. He swallowed. But it was absence. The admission felt unguarded. Unpolished. He doesn't want food, the father said. He wants familiarity. Marisol's anger wavered, but didn't vanish. And instead of rebuilding that yourself, she said, you outsourced it. A flicker of pain crossed his face. You think I haven't tried? That was the first time emotion edged his voice. I rearranged my schedule. I sat at the table. I ordered private lessons. I built a kitchen larger than most restaurants. Money. Solutions. Infrastructure. But he didn't laugh, he finished quietly. That memory again. The laugh by the truck. The pancake on the pavement. She felt it soften something inside her despite herself. He laughs here, he said again. Not accusatory. Just factual. And you decided that meant I was qualified, she replied. I decided it meant you were genuine. The word genuine landed heavier than she expected. I can't afford manipulation, he continued. Not around him. And yet you manipulated me, she said. That one hit. Harder. He didn't argue. Didn't deflect. I needed certainty, he said. And I needed honesty, she replied. Their eyes locked. Power. Principle. Protection. He exhaled slowly. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked unsure. I am desperate, he admitted. There it was. No polish. No strategy. Just desperation. For him, he clarified. She studied him carefully now. Not the suit. Not the car. The father. Grief carved deep. Control built on fear. A man who had lost something he could never replace. Her anger softened. But it didn't disappear. You don't get to turn people into experiments, she said quietly. No, he agreed. And I don't work under surveillance. He nodded once. Understood. Silence stretched again. The sun dipped lower. Shadows lengthened across the pavement. So what now? He asked. It wasn't authoritative. It was open. She wiped her hands slowly on her apron. I won't come to your house, she said. His expression didn't change. I won't take your money. A small flicker behind his eyes. And I won't be part of any more tests. A beat. Understood, he repeated. Then she stepped back, putting space between them. I feed children because they're hungry, she said. Not because I'm auditioning. He absorbed that without interruption.
She turned.
Walked back toward the truck. Didn't look at the SUV again.
Didn't look at him.
And when she locked the door that night, her hands shook slightly.
Not from fear.
From something heavier.
Conflict.
Later, in the small apartment kitchen, Sophia sat at the table drawing. Crayons scattered.
Homework half finished.
Marisol moved slower than usual.
Quieter.
You're thinking, Sophia observed. I'm always thinking.
No, Sophia shook her head.
Different thinking. Children notice what adults hide.
Marisol forced a smile. Finish your math.
Sophia tilted her head.
Mommy. Yes.
Why did you stop smiling when he came? The question froze her. The room felt smaller suddenly.
She turned slowly. Who?
The tall man, Sophia said simply. You smile when Adrian comes. You didn't smile when his dad came. Marisol opened her mouth to answer.
But no words came. Because Sophia was right.
Something had changed. Something inside her had stiffened. And for the first time since this began, she didn't know if she had just protected herself, or pushed away something she didn't fully understand.
Outside. Somewhere in the dark.
A black SUV idled for just a moment longer than necessary.
And tomorrow.
Nothing would feel as simple as it once did.
She didn't call him. She didn't text.
She didn't wait by the truck hoping he'd step out of the SUV again. Marisol Rivera did not chase men in expensive suits. But 3 days after she walked away, she made a decision.
Not for him. For Adrian.
Because on the 4th afternoon without him, the lamppost looked wrong.
Too empty.
And Sophia noticed it too.
He didn't come, Sophia whispered.
No, Marisol replied quietly. And that silence felt heavier than any confrontation. So she sent one message.
5 words. We need to talk. Alone.
The reply came almost immediately.
Name the place.
She chose neutral ground. A quiet park cafe halfway between his world and hers.
No suits. No chalkboards.
No power imbalance disguised as generosity. He arrived exactly on time. No security detail in sight. No SUV in view.
Just him. Dark sweater. Sleeves rolled. No watch.
That detail didn't escape her.
He sat across from her. Not beside. Across. Distance acknowledged.
Thank you for agreeing to meet, he said. This isn't agreement, she replied calmly. It's clarity.
A slight nod. He accepted that. For a moment, neither spoke.
Children played in the distance. Wind moved gently through trees. Ordinary life continued around two people negotiating something far from ordinary. She leaned forward slightly. Kindness is not a test, she said.
Her voice was steady. Measured.
It's not something you measure from a distance and grade. His eyes didn't leave hers.
I know that, he said.
No, she replied softly.
You don't.
The words weren't cruel.
They were honest.
Trust isn't built through manipulation, she continued. It's built through presence.
A pause.
You taught your son that everything is a transaction.
His jaw tightened. That's not.
You asked him what I would do if I knew, she said. You turned human connection into a scenario.
Silence. Heavy. He's 10, she added quietly.
He shouldn't be analyzing motives.
That landed.
Harder than anything else. For the first time since she'd known him, his composure cracked. Not dramatically, but visibly. He looked away. Toward the playground. Toward nothing. I don't know how to do this, he admitted.
No polish.
No strategy. Just truth.
She didn't interrupt.
I know how to negotiate acquisitions, he continued quietly. I know how to read markets. I know how to anticipate risk. His voice thinned slightly. But I don't know how to raise a child alone.
There it was. Raw. Unfiltered. I don't know how to be soft, he added.
The word felt foreign in his mouth. And I am terrified, he said slowly, that if I fail him, I will lose him too. Not physically. Emotionally. That kind of loss. The one that happens while two people still live under the same roof. Marisol felt something shift inside her.
Not surrender. Understanding. He wasn't a villain.
He was a man trying to control grief with structure. And grief doesn't obey structure. You can't engineer love, she said gently.
I know.
You can't audit trust.
I know. You can't outsource presence.
His eyes lifted back to hers.
I know, he repeated. But this time.
It sounded less defensive.
More exhausted.
A long pause stretched between them. And for the first time, the tension wasn't combative.
It was shared.
You're the first person, he said slowly, who didn't treat me like a bank account.
She blinked.
You don't ask for favors.
You don't hint at opportunities. You don't flinch when I speak.
He held her gaze. You treat me like a father. The words lingered in the air between them. Not romantic.
Not yet.
But intimate in a way that money couldn't manufacture. She exhaled slowly.
I don't care how much you're worth, she said.
I care how you show up.
Another silence. Then.
I need help, he admitted. That sentence cost him something.
She could see it. The pride.
The identity.
The control.
He set them down anyway.
And in that moment,
the power dynamic shifted. Not because he lost authority, but because he allowed vulnerability.
I'll cook, she said finally.
The word surprised even her.
But she didn't soften them. On my terms.
His posture straightened slightly.
Listening. I am not staff, she continued.
I am not a variable. I am not an experiment.
He nodded once.
There will be no more secret tests, she said.
Agreed. No surveillance. Agreed. No power games. A beat. Then. Agreed.
She studied him carefully. Looking for calculation.
For loopholes. She didn't see them. She saw relief.
And I will be respected, she finished. Always, he said. The word came too quickly to be strategic.
It felt genuine. For the first time.
She almost smiled at him again.
Almost.
But just as the air began to settle,
his phone buzzed sharply against the table. He glanced at the screen. Something shifted. Subtle. Tension returned. Problem? She asked. He hesitated.
Then turned the phone slightly so she could see. A message preview.
Board emergency session. Urgent.
Another notification followed immediately. Media inquiry regarding domestic staff.
His jaw tightened.
They found out. She asked quietly. Speculation travels fast, he replied. Speculation about what? About why a street vendor is suddenly connected to my son.
Street vendor.
The phrase wasn't cruel. It was accurate. But it highlighted the divide. What does your board think? She asked. He exhaled slowly. They think perception is currency. And I'm bad currency? They think scandal weakens stock.
A bitter edge touched her voice.
And feeding your son weakens stock? They think visibility matters.
There it was. Public tension.
Wealth and image. Boardrooms and headlines. He looked at her carefully. If you walk into my home, he said, it will not stay private. Reporters.
Speculation. Judgment.
Are you prepared for that? He asked. It wasn't a warning.
It was respect.
She held his gaze. I've survived worse than gossip, she said quietly.
He almost smiled. Almost.
But somewhere in a glass building downtown, a boardroom full of suits was already calculating risk. And tomorrow, this won't just be about a father and a son. It will be about power.
Perception.
And whether kindness can survive public scrutiny. The board moved quickly. Whispers turned into articles. Articles turned into speculation. Speculation turned into cameras. By Friday afternoon, the headline had already shifted from curiosity to narrative. Billionaire CEO seen with local food vendor, inside the unexpected connection. They expected secrecy. They expected quiet dismissal. They expected her to disappear.
Instead, he sent her an invitation.
A formal charity gala hosted by his foundation.
Public. Televised. Media heavy.
Are you sure? She asked when he handed her the embossed card.
No, he answered honestly.
But I'm done hiding things that matter. The night of the event, the ballroom shimmered with chandeliers and quiet judgment.
Silk gowns.
Tailored suits. Soft orchestral music floating above strategic conversations. Marisol stood near the entrance for half a second longer than necessary.
Simple navy dress. Hair pinned back. No designer label. Just herself.
Adrian spotted her first.
He broke protocol. Ran. Not walked.
Not measured. ran straight across the marble floor and wrapped his arms around her waist. And in that single, unscripted moment,
cameras flashed.
Not because of scandal, but because something real had interrupted something polished.
She knelt slightly. "Hey," she whispered. "You came," he said. "Of course."
Then his father approached.
Not rushed. Not distant. Present.
He stood beside them, not ahead, not above.
Beside.
A reporter stepped forward, microphone poised. "Sir, would you care to explain the nature of your relationship with?" He didn't let her finish. He placed a steady hand at the small of Marisol's back.
Not possessive. Supportive.
And he said clearly, "This is the woman who reminded my son what it means to feel cared for." Silence rippled outward.
Not scandal.
Recognition. He didn't frame her as staff.
Or charity. Or project.
He framed her as impact. The power dynamic shifted permanently in that sentence.
Equalized. Earned. Later.
When the lights dimmed and the speeches ended, he didn't return her to the shadows. He walked her out the front doors.
Openly.
The following Monday, the food truck was back on Westbrook Avenue. Butter hitting the griddle. Cinnamon rising in warm air.
But this time,
the black SUV didn't idle across the street. It parked directly beside the truck. No tinted mystery.
No distance.
The door flew open before the engine even stopped. Adrian ran toward her again. Laughing. Freely. His father stepped out more slowly.
No suit jacket. No armor.
Just gratitude in his eyes.
He didn't watch from afar. He stood in line. Waited his turn. And when she handed him a plate, he smiled. Not controlled. Not calculated. Grateful. The first day she fed him, she thought she was helping a lost boy. She never imagined. She was helping a broken family find its way home.